From a nurse running an OnlyFans account from a hospital to another one destroying patient privacy on live stream.
Of people holding me accountable for what I've done.
These are the most disturbing nurses in the world that are being canceled for their unacceptable behavior, starting with Nurse Sarah, who is teaching how to exploit patient privacy.
Don't look at me with those eyes.
When the noble profession of nursing meets the dark side of social media, chaos isn't far behind. Medicine is one of the most respected fields in the world, built on trust, care, and sacrifice. But lately, thanks to TikTok and Instagram, its image is being chipped away, one cringe-worthy video at a time. Meet Nurse Sarah, a self-proclaimed content creator who seems determined to drag the dignity of nursing through every gutter she can find online. With her creepy skits, jaw-dropping dialogues, and unsettling reenactments, she doesn't just blur the line between humor and horror, she destroys it. She not only says the most disturbing, awkward things, but acts them out as if they're part of hospital life. Viewers are left wondering, is this a joke? Is she serious? Or has the internet finally broken her? Let's dive into the bizarre, chaotic world of Nurse Sarah and ask the uncomfortable question: is there a point where content creation becomes a disgrace to the profession it pretends to represent? This is her TikTok account named Caregiving Sarah. Well, the kind of care she's trying to give to her patients on her social media is way more weird than one could imagine. Whoops, what is this? Another TikTok account? Seriously? Let's take a look at the content here. Well, surprise, surprise, it's nothing new. In fact, the videos are literally the exact same ones. Man, what's even the point of creating an entirely new account just to repost the same old stuff? Insane! And for what? A few more views? A few extra followers? It honestly looks like she's just throwing the same content at different walls, hoping it sticks somewhere. Maybe she's experimenting with algorithms, checking insights, or maybe she's just getting desperate. At this point, it's less about creativity and more about a mad dash for clout. The hunger for fame is practically dripping off her posts, and honestly, it's hard to watch without cringing a little. The real question is, when you chase numbers this hard, what are you even building? An audience or just a hollow echo chamber? Anyway, this content feels less like humor and more like straight-up sexual harassment. Honestly, it doesn't even look like a channel run by a real nurse. At this point, you start wondering, is this even TikTok anymore? Or did we accidentally stumble into the OnlyFans page of some creepy lady pretending to be a cringy nurse? It's not funny, it's not clever, and it's definitely not something the nursing profession would be proud of. What's worse is that she's blurring the lines between entertainment and exploitation, and that's a seriously dangerous game to play. Let's swiftly take a look at her Instagram. Oh, wait. Get a huge tub of popcorn for yourself because, my friends, the list is unending. Here we go. And the official, of course. By the way, these are the only ones that we were able to find. There are many others. These many accounts on just a single platform. Is it mad or is it mad? Again, the content on all these accounts is nearly the same. So if you check the link attached to her main account, it looks somewhat like this. Oh my gosh, it literally says, Sarah Bird, let's heal you with some natural medicine. Ugh, no. Do whatever crazy stuff you want to do, but at least have the decency not to drag a noble profession like medicine down with you. Nurses are some of the most respected figures in society, second only to our own family members when it comes to care and trust. They don't just schedule our medicines and diets, they nurture our mental health, comfort us when we're at our lowest, and sometimes they're the only light in a very dark room. And then there's this sad excuse for content. Honestly, what Sarah is doing is beyond disrespectful. It's disgusting. But wait, it gets worse. She hasn't just linked her TikTok account here. She's proudly attached her OnlyFans page too, advertising exclusive content. Promoting OnlyFans through Instagram, especially by trampling over the dignity of a noble profession, should honestly qualify as a punishable offense. It's not bold, it's not edgy, it's just disrespectful, and it deserves to be called out. And there's another secret account attached to her main Instagram account which says, here she gives you access to her behind-the-scenes content. We don't want to get into that bullshit now, it's already a little too much, and we don't want to roast our brain cells with this kind of stuff. Because honestly, there's more to come. Fasten your seatbelts. Let's take a look at her content. A lot of people wonder about her team. They say there are 2 to 3 people on the screen most of the time, But when it comes to this video of hers,
Look, I just flipped the switch. Flip, flip. I don't know nobody else that's doing this.
in this TikTok video of hers, the two main characters kind of look the same. But when it comes to this video, these two girls look very different. Also, just to make sure if this girl Sarah produces the content from a real hospital or not, let's take a look at this video of hers.
Don't look at me with those eyes.
What eyes? These videos and a few others make it pretty obvious that she's using a chroma key to fake the hospital background. So not only has she disrespected and defamed hardworking nurses, but she's also shamelessly misused the image of a hospital itself. What's supposed to be a place of healing and hope has been turned into a tacky backdrop for cheap, cringy content. It's honestly beyond embarrassing, it's offensive. Let's check what the reaction of the audience. Here's a person commenting on one of Sarah's videos saying, "Are you sick? WTF? That is abuse. Why are you all cool with this? Yeah, seriously." As an audience, we need to be at least a little responsible, if not more. Content like this, where a random girl pops up on your feed and openly portrays acts of abuse under the disguise of humor, is completely unacceptable. It's not just content, it's a serious crime hiding in plain sight. In some of her videos, the patients aren't even real people. They're statues or human-like props. But the damage her content causes is very real. She's poisoning the way people think, warping perceptions and normalizing behaviors that should never be joked about. And the worst part, it's the younger generation, the ones glued to their phones and computer screens 24/7, who are the most vulnerable to this kind of toxic influence. They crave content, they consume it endlessly, and without realizing it, they absorb the worst of it. This isn't harmless entertainment, it's the slow corrosion of common sense, empathy, and basic human decency. Let's check other videos of her.
Let me show you what you're missing.
Legs that work.
Oh my gosh, wait, is she even for real? Because honestly, this kind of content is blocking all my brain cells. Seriously. And what kind of audience is even liking her videos? Guys, come on, let's use a little bit of common sense here. This girl isn't providing you entertainment. She's slapping a huge amount of disrespect right across the face of a noble profession. All you need to do is simple. Either report her account or block it. There's an endless ocean of amazing, hilarious, and meaningful content out there on social media. So why waste your time consuming something that is neither smart, nor funny, nor remotely respectful? Sure, there are sexual jokes and dark humor and stand-up comedy too, and that's fine because those happen in a specific context with clear consent. But what is this girl throwing out so casually on public platforms? It's not art, it's not edgy. It's just plain disrespectful and cheap. And here's the bigger problem. When you like, share, or even engage with this kind of content, you're silently encouraging it. You're giving a thumbs up to the disrespect of real nurses, real hospitals, and the real hard work that saves lives every single day. So the next time your finger hovers over that like button, think again. Be smart enough to choose content that lifts up professions, not tramples over them for 2 seconds of viral fame. Let's check out some other videos. So uncomfortable and weird.
You are mine! You are mine!
And this, who does that? Why would anyone do that? Stop flashing yourself in front of the camera. Our eyes can't take it anymore.
So, back in the day, jingle, 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 back in the day, before the back rooms were a thing, okay? Jingle, jingle, pay attention, I said your favorite word, the back rooms, okay? The back rooms, dingle, dangle, dingle.
This is something very shaking. You're making fun of a dementia patient? Insane. Let's quickly educate ourselves on what the medical field truly is, and just how crucial the role of a nurse is within a hospital. The medical field has always been one of the most important pillars of society, and today it's more vital than ever. Doctors, without questioning your race, culture, or background, treat and heal you with all the skills and compassion they possess. Every medical profession takes an oath to never deny a patient care on any grounds, committing to offer the best treatment possible. That's exactly why medicine is often called the noblest profession of all. Medical professionals are needed everywhere, in the army, in sports, in zoos, in research labs, and beyond. Just imagine. No healthy individuals, no thriving economy, no innovation, no education, no community. Without good health, everything else collapses. Thus, the medical community deserves every bit of respect, credibility, and recognition we can give them. Now, coming back to the nurses, those incredible individuals who work day and night to make sure you get well again. From assisting in surgeries, emergencies, critical care units, and rehabilitation, to providing emotional support and education to patients and their families, nurses are the heartbeat of healthcare. They monitor patient recovery, respond swiftly to changes in health, and take care of the mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being of patients, not just their physical needs. But unfortunately, Sarah has shattered all ethics and morals associated with this noble profession. She's crossed every line. She not only jokes about bizarre and delusional scenarios with patients, but also portrays scenes of outright abuse on screen under the false banner of nursing. This is not just disturbing, it's dangerously misleading, especially for younger audiences who are heavily influenced by what they consume online. Today, almost everyone has a smartphone in their hand. Anyone from any corner of the world can turn on a camera, press record, and become a content creator. Entertainment is no longer limited to the big screen. The internet now shapes the ideas, perspectives, and futures of society more now than ever. Content is pouring out in bulk, more immense than ever, and while that's a sign of creative freedom, it also demands greater responsibility. By creating such vulgar and disrespectful content, Sarah has not only insulted the entire nursing profession, but also disrespected genuine entertainers and hardworking creators who pour their blood, sweat, and creativity into their art. It's easy to chase clout. It's far harder to build a legacy. It's easy to chase clout. It's far harder to build a legacy. It's easy to grab attention. It's far harder to earn respect. And Sarah, in her desperate attempt to go viral, has traded dignity for cheap tricks. We as the audience have a responsibility too. We're the ones who decide what survives and what fades. Every view, every like, every share. We're voting for the kind of world we want to build. Let's choose wisely. This girl is openly using CNA on her page's bio, which means Certified Nursing Assistant. Even her Instagram official page says @CNA Sarah. Faking a profession, especially on public platforms like social media, is not just unethical, it's illegal. It's not like she's casually mentioning somewhere that she's merely acting for entertainment purposes. No, she has directly claimed to be a certified nursing assistant and regularly uses hospital backdrops to validate that lie. This behavior, without a doubt, deserves serious legal consequences. Only then will it set an example, warning others to think twice before mocking or misrepresenting such respected professions just for a few minutes of online fame. And honestly, what kind of career path is this even? She's neither a doctor, nor a nurse, nor even a real actor. She isn't even a genuine content creator or an entertainer. All she seems to promote is soft, masked under the fake glamour of a nurse's uniform, luring audiences toward her OnlyFans page and private subscription sites. That's where her real money rolls in. Meanwhile, her TikTok and Instagram videos rack up millions of views in ridiculously short spans of time. Not because of talent, but because of cheap shock value. It's sad and scary at the same time. Instead of building a career on skill, passion, and real influence, she's built a business model out of exploitation and deception. And the worst part, platforms that were designed to connect, inspire, and educate are being abused to normalize this kind of behavior. Let's take a look at her Instagram account now. As we've seen her Instagram official page, when you go to the posts section, you could easily notice decent pictures of hers. Of course, not her face though. Let's take a closer look at a few of her posts. Okay, this seems like a pretty decent one. Closer to nature and all that. Let's read her caption. The real trick of living is instead of spending every minute looking back and wondering if you could have lived that part better. Well, well, well. Where did that come from? A sudden transformation? A drastic change of heart? This looks like a picture posted by a saint who has lived a full life and gathered all the wisdom in the world. It either gives off the vibe of a free-spirited, wise soul whose childhood was weighed down by restrictions and trauma, or, a more realistic guess, it's just another random post carefully crafted for engagement purposes. Too much decency in a single post, Sarah. Not bad, though. Props for trying to switch up the vibe, whether real or rehearsed. Here's another post of hers. Wait, what is this creepy uncle trying to put out over here? You are my kind of woman, your ex needs glasses? You are the perfect woman. Yes, you can be my wife anytime, make me the happiest man alive. But for you to share your pictures on for fans only, I can't handle sharing my woman with anyone. Your body is my private temple, and I don't share my woman with nobody. Oh my gosh, why do sometimes people grow but their brains don't? Why would you say that, sir? She seems to be almost half of his age. So, sir, if you're watching this, please get a life and appreciate the younger generation for better things. Here's another post of hers. While some of her posts on Instagram might look kind of decent, the comment section is a whole other circus. Take this one, for example. Someone actually commented, "I did read all of it. Just wondering, why do I have to pay to get to know you? I would definitely love to get to know you, but I feel like having to pay is a little much. I will definitely model my hand for you if you'd like. That sounds a lot more reasonable, LOL. 2 things I know for sure. You're funny and very beautiful. So let's get to know each other. What do you say?" No, brother. You're trying to sail straight into the Bermuda Triangle with that move. Once you step into the radar of her content, there's no coming back until she herself decides to quit. The passion with which people are flooding her comment section is honestly something our scientists should seriously start researching. No, not their eyesight, not even their choice of content, but their brain cells. Because clearly somewhere between entering Instagram and landing on her page, there has been a massive collision and rupture inside their brains that made them shamelessly comment under her posts. Also, hello, why is nobody talking about the real issues here? About her inappropriate content, her bizarre and unacceptable topics, and the fact that she's faking and pretending to be a certified professional. The silence is just as worrying as the content itself. Anyways, moving on to her reels. Let's quickly sneak into the reels section. No way. There's seriously no way she's posting the same cringy content here too. The posts look kind of decent at first glance, but the reels? Boom, back to the same old dirty and cringe-worthy track. And the copy-paste vibe of her videos is just mind-boggling. Why is the same video of her floating around on literally every platform on the internet? What's the point? More followers, more views. Honestly, this girl radiates hardcore narcissist energy. She seems madly in love with herself and is obsessed with her own content. She's clearly chasing attention, validation, and of course, the cash that comes with it. So every time you hit that follow button or subscribe to her account, guess what? You're not just being a passive viewer, you are literally filling her pockets with money. When it comes to the health of patients around the world, anyone feeling physically or mentally unwell needs to be surrounded by positivity, care, and proper treatment. All they seek is hope, a genuine solution to their suffering. Take the example of the global lockdown during the coronavirus pandemic in 2019 to 2020. The entire world was battling immense physical and emotional pain. Fear, uncertainty, grief, every household faced it. But then came the digital wave. A flood of creators from even the smallest towns and villages pulled out their cameras and created content. Singing, dancing, sharing helpful information. People worked so hard to spread awareness about the virus, shared DIY health tips, conducted online education, and provided free mental health support. In a time when depression and anxiety were skyrocketing, these creators became the light bearers of hope. They helped millions maintain their sanity, faith, and strength. Now contrast that with the kind of content Sarah produces. Instead of healing or inspiring anyone, her posts do the complete opposite. They damage the mental strength of patients even further. Her videos, which openly mock serious conditions like dementia and depression, cross every moral line there is. She turns sensitive health issues into cheap entertainment. And that, my friends, is not just disrespectful, but dangerously harmful. When a patient sees a so-called nurse mocking their condition or turning their suffering into a joke, it can shatter their already fragile mental state. Mental health is delicate. Patients often struggle with overwhelming feelings of helplessness, loneliness, and despair. Watching such demeaning and insensitive portrayals can trigger deep anxiety attacks, worsen feelings of humiliation and worthlessness, cause PTSD symptoms to flare up, push already depressed patients towards self-harm or suicidal thoughts. Imagine a young patient battling depression, scrolling through their phone and stumbling across a nurse mocking mental health struggles as entertainment. The feeling of being mocked, misunderstood, and unimportant can be devastating. In reality, patients need uplifting content, stories of survival, messages of strength, reassurance that healing is possible. Instead, Sarah's content could make them feel even more isolated and hopeless. abuse, even when portrayed jokingly or lightheartedly on platforms like TikTok or Instagram, normalizes violence and erodes the seriousness of the trauma real victims go through. It creates a culture where boundaries are blurred and serious crimes are brushed off as jokes. In short, Sarah's content isn't just a harmless skit. It's a direct attack on the dignity, emotions, and recovery journey of millions of vulnerable patients across the world. Here's a video of hers on Instagram. And the caption says, "It happens more often than you'd think. A strange and persistent response from the body that has nothing to do with desire. It can be uncomfortable, even painful, and often leaves people feeling confused or embarrassed. But medically speaking, it's just another condition that needs the right kind of care. It's called priapism, a prolonged and often painful erection that won't go away. It's not about arousal at all, and it can be triggered by certain meds, blood disorders, or even nerve problems. And if it's left untreated, it can cause long-term issues. So early attention really matters. As nurses, we've seen it all. And trust me, there's no judgment, only care and solutions. So if it ever happens, don't panic and don't be ashamed. Sometimes the best treatment is medical help, and sometimes a little love works better than yelling." Little love? Girls, seriously, this is something that could shake every sane brain cell left. First of all, huge reality check. There's a massive difference between love and lust, in case you missed that chapter. Love is what a patient's family showers upon them through timeless care, consistent medication, proper diet, emotional support, and a steady dose of hope and positivity. A nurse's job is to heal, nurture, and protect, not to play with a patient's mind, dignity, or body. And the irony here, she herself has mentioned the medical condition priapism, but clearly has no sensitivity about it. Let's quickly educate ourselves. Priapism is a serious medical condition characterized by a prolonged, painful erection lasting 4 hours or more, entirely unrelated to arousal or stimulation. It's a painful emergency, not something remotely funny or sexual. The patient in this case isn't aroused. He isn't asking for it. He is in pain, physical and mental. Mocking a patient at such a vulnerable moment isn't just inappropriate, it's absolutely disgusting. So is there any reason to create a funny video about it? No. Is it helping anyone? The patients, the profession, society at large? Absolutely not. In fact, it's doing irreparable harm by making light of a critical condition, making patients feel more ashamed, scared, and isolated. And to make matters worse, she's even posted a reel where she's acting out giving a job to a patient.
Okay, your turn. Go!
I hereby state that
Yes.
I...
Sure, she might argue it's just acting, but let's be real clear. Acting or not, it's still disgusting. It's still wrong. It's still a direct slap to the face of every healthcare professional working tirelessly to uphold the dignity of their field. And what does her caption say? "Honestly, I've been through worse. I've got this." What even? You've been through worse? What exactly is worse than disrespecting a vulnerable, sick patient on a public platform for cheap laughs and clicks? It's beyond shocking. At this point, all we can say is if you can't contribute to healing patients, at least leave them and their mental health alone. Stop weaponizing their suffering for your entertainment. Stop turning hospitals into stages for your fake attention-seeking theatrics. Also, this kind of content should never become the reason why the younger generation chooses a career in nursing, or in any noble field for that matter. The youth today are strong-headed, passionate, and incredibly ambitious, but they're also highly vulnerable to wrong influences. Unlike the older times, today we're living in an ocean of entertainment, where hundreds of influencers are popping up every second with different kinds of content, carrying vastly different perspectives. Practically speaking, today's world offers more opportunities, more options, and unfortunately more distractions, all served on the same platter. Choosing a career path, finding your passion, and building a meaningful future has never been harder. A good upbringing, solid schooling, and moral education now have to compete with the flood of content that this younger generation consumes every single day, sometimes unconsciously. Thus, it becomes the direct responsibility of influencers and content creators to preserve a sense of sanity, to create responsibility, and not pollute society by wrongly influencing impressionable minds. The future isn't shaped by just classrooms anymore. It's being shaped by TikToks, Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And if we aren't careful with the content we put out there, we aren't just failing the profession, we are failing the future itself. But have you noticed the other hand of Sarah? Yes, she herself is a disabled person who's making fun of other such people with similar disabilities. But what could be the story behind it? Let's dive into one of her story highlights and check out what she had to say. So, she answers the questions the audience had about her hand. Here she says, "I was born with dysmelia, a birth defect that means I don't have fingers on my left hand. Growing up was tough with bullying, but now I see it as a part of what makes me strong and unique." So, as suspected, she did experience childhood trauma. She openly admitted to facing bullying, which clearly shattered her self-esteem and perhaps even led to underlying anger issues. There are countless cases where bullying drives individuals into depression and isolation, but sadly, there are also cases where people channel their pain by hopping onto a completely wrong path. No wonder she seems so hesitant to show her full face, especially when she could easily, like thousands of others online, proudly own her identity, even while making videos, no matter how cringe they are. Her lack of full confidence today, her partial hiding, and her content style hinted something deeper. A part of her may still be struggling with shame, or maybe at some level she knows that what she's doing isn't right. Because confidence doesn't just come from being seen, it comes from doing the right thing and standing behind it with pride. Then there is another story highlight. She's saying being a CNA in the ICU with dysmelia is challenging yet so rewarding. Even though I've had doubts, I've learned to embrace who I am and love every bit of my journey. Every day is a new opportunity, and I'm proud of how far I've come. Life is a beautiful adventure, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Let us keep spreading good vibes and positivity. Okay, till this point, we're all with her. All for the sympathy for her struggles, all the guilt for the tough journey she had to endure. Childhood bullying, birth defects, these are real battles, and she fought them. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. One thing she seems very firm about is her claim of being a certified nursing assistant, CNA. She's also said that she works at a hospital specifically in the ICUs, and this is exactly where the red flag starts screaming. At this point, every single person watching her content has the same question. What kind of hospital is this, where nurses are apparently trained to abuse patients and make a mockery of their critical conditions? Since when did ICU care involve acting out patients' vulnerabilities for TikTok reels? Since when did the medical professionalism get reduced to cheap skits exploiting the pain of the sick? This isn't just unethical, it's unforgivable. So Sarah, being disabled and an influencer herself, is expected to be far more accountable for what she puts out on the internet. Also, if we even consider the possibility of her being a CNA, which honestly seems doubtful, she's bound to follow all the rules and ethics of the profession. Instead, she's not only wrongly influencing people, but is also accused of abusing patients, if they actually exist.
Nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know. How would they know?
Somebody's watching me. Is my anxiety.
She should definitely be punished with heavy penalties and kept away from the internet. All her social media and OnlyFans accounts should be reported and banned for dangerously influencing people and violating the ethics of the medical field. But before all that, the first and most important step should be to take her to a real credible hospital where she can undergo a proper mental health evaluation by certified professionals and be kept under observation. Because at this point, not only is her content damaging others, but it's clearly taking a serious toll on her own mental health too. It's high time people realize that freedom of expression comes with a boundary of responsibility. You cannot misuse a sacred profession and disguise it under the name of entertainment, especially when lives, hope, and mental stability are involved. There should be zero tolerance for such reckless behavior. If action isn't taken now, it sets a dangerous precedent for what could be considered normal tomorrow. What do you all think about Sarah? What, in your opinion, is the best solution for dealing with such behavior? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts and have a real conversation about it. Also, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends and family members, especially with the younger kids who are constantly glued to their phone screens and soaking up all kinds of content without realizing its impact. And speaking of internet scandals, have you heard about the influencer who's been accused of blackmailing and harassing people just to get them to sleep with her? Click on the link and find out how Danisha Carter played some of the darkest games on the internet. You won't believe it.
You gotta be a different kind of dumb to get on here and record yourself on live as a nurse doing a medication pass.
Even if you don't think you're showing patient information, I'm sure you are.
Why do I keep doing that? I'll lose my license if I'm showing patient information. I'm not showing any patient information, so just relax.
Over the past few years, filming yourself while working a regular job has become extremely common, especially on TikTok. Most of the time it could be harmless, but when it's done in certain industries, it can turn into a full-scale disaster. and nowhere is that risk higher than in the medical field. Which brings us to a TikToker who has become infamous not just for crossing that line, but for doing it in the most reckless way possible, alongside other outright deranged behavior.
Patient information. I'm not showing any patient information, so just relax. But I'm not showing nothing, I'm just at work. So.
Yazz Scott is a licensed nurse who was caught passing medication while live streaming. On top of that, she exposed the full name of her patient. Not just bad for the person involved, but a direct and serious violation of HIPAA, the gold standard privacy rule in the medical profession.
Yes, ma'am.
Any patient information? You said that whole lady name. That lady whole name. I don't even care if they can't see the medicine.
It just shows how reckless she could be. After the clip went viral and the hospital temporarily suspended her license, Yazz apologized, but not to the patient she had doxed to thousands of viewers. Instead, she apologized for the fact that the clip had gone viral.
I do want you guys to know that I'm well aware, again, of how extreme and severe my actions were. You do things and you don't think that it's gonna go viral. You don't think that it's going to be even seen. And in my case, it was. I woke up and I was all over the internet and I had thousands of comments of people holding me accountable for what I've done.
Yazz is a single mother of 3, currently in her 30s. We don't have any confirmed details about her love life or the father of her kids, but from the kind of posts she's made, it's hard not to assume she's been through a rough and possibly toxic relationship history. There's this undertone in her content that suggests bitterness and baggage, the kind of personal drama that seems to spill over into how she presents herself online.
Baby, it's alright. Baby, it's alright. Baby, it's alright, yeah.
Aside from that, Yazz's TikTok career actually began a few months before she even graduated from nursing school, back when she was still a student. And this is where the perception doesn't match reality. If you only knew her from her recent content or the way she talks about her career, you'd think she's been in the field for years and is some sort of experienced senior nurse. But she's not. She only just got into the profession. And the way she already treats it with this mix of recklessness and overconfidence is honestly wild. It's like she's more focused on building her personal brand than actually proving herself as a nurse. In the beginning, Yazz's content was about as harmless as it gets. Short clips where she vented about the day-to-day grind of being a nursing student. There was nothing malicious or controversial, and honestly, it was the kind of content anyone in school could relate to.
Ain't no police around here, baby, I won't judge you. Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end.
Her audience at that point was small, but genuinely supportive. Under one video where she talked about having to study 24/7, someone commented, "I hope you got through it with all the BS I heard. Good luck, girly." Another said, "I just said this is a full-time job. I'm in a diploma program and our classes are only 8 weeks." Those weren't isolated examples either. Most of her early comments looked exactly like that. People weren't criticizing her, they were sharing their own experiences, comparing workloads, and encouraging her to keep going. And that's what makes this contrast so sharp now, because it's almost hard to believe that the same person who once had viewers rooting for her would go on to be remembered more for live streaming HIPAA violations than for anything she did as a nurse. On August 13th, Yazz sat for the NCLEX, the standardized exam that determines whether a nursing student is truly ready to practice. Pass it and you earn your license. Fail it and you're back to square one. Yazz took the test and passed, announcing the news in a celebratory post. "Thank God I passed. It's been such a long journey. I'm usually very quiet about my accomplishments, but we are popping our shit."
And I just woke up feeling like I'm that girl, I'm that bitch. What happened? Because I am.
This was supposed to be the start of a new chapter, the payoff for years of studying and grinding. But instead of this being the moment she stepped fully into her career, it became the pivot point where everything began to spiral. And not because of anything that happened at her nursing job, but because right after passing the exam, Yazz started live streaming on TikTok more than ever. What should have been the start of a stable professional life quickly became the start of her biggest mistakes, all played out live for thousands to see. Soon enough, Yazz shifted into making live streams as a nurse TikToker, creating content during her shifts. On paper, that might sound harmless, a little behind-the-scenes look at a day in the life. But anyone with common sense knows that filming while working in healthcare is a slippery slope. And for Yazz, that slope became a free fall on June 5th.
You do mornings. Yeah.
Healthcare girly. Okay.
Can you check my pants, see if they're dry?
Let me get a glove on. Nope, they feel dry, girlfriend. I'll lose my license if I'm showing patient information. I'm not showing any patient information, so just relax.
That day, she went live on TikTok while actively treating a patient. It didn't take long for viewers in the chat to start warning her that she might be violating patient privacy, a direct HIPAA violation. But instead of stopping, Yazz doubled down. She became openly abrasive, blocking anyone in her chat who told her to end the stream. Her defense? She claimed she wasn't revealing any private information. That might have been believable if she hadn't already called the patient by their full name on camera for all her viewers to hear.
Oh my God, y'all just be on here doing the most. Just relax.
Yes, ma'am.
This wasn't just bending the rules, it was breaking them in the most blatant way possible. Even a random person off the street with zero medical training could understand how wrong that is. For an actual licensed nurse to do it is beyond reckless. It's pure negligence. And Yazz didn't just stop there. At one point, she casually told her viewers, "If you have heard any information, holler," as if violating HIPAA was just another joke to throw into her stream. That single line says everything about her attitude. Zero seriousness, zero accountability, and not even pretending to care.
See some patient information and just holla, but I'm not showing nothing, I'm just at work, so.
To make matters worse, the stream also showed her fully broadcasting herself passing medication to the patient, another massive breach of privacy. Any professional would know you keep medication details between you and your patient, but Yazz treated it like casual background content.
I've been working on my own now. Actually, I just started this job. I've only been here for probably about a month.
And yet somehow it got worse. Viewers caught multiple moments where she ignored basic hygiene and broke standard work procedures. But the most alarming part came when she was confronted about a medication error. She brushed it off, saying she had just mistaken a daytime pill for a nighttime pill as if that was no big deal. That excuse is terrifying, because even if that specific mix-up didn't harm the patient, it's exactly the kind of careless behavior that does cause serious harm in other situations.
I just started this job. I've only been here for probably about a month. Actually, it wasn't the wrong medication. It's just the lidocaine patch. I'm supposed to have it in the daytime, not at night. Oh my God.
After the stream blew up, people didn't just sit back and talk about it, they went straight to the source. Many viewers began contacting the state's Board of Nursing, filing reports about what they'd seen. It didn't take long for action to be taken. Yazz's nursing license was temporarily suspended. She was pulled from her job, and an investigation was opened into her conduct. Just like that, her entire career came to a screeching halt.
If you are watching this and you're the nurse in question, or if you're another nurse who's been following this situation closely, please listen closely. The update is that more than 50 people contacted the Board of Nursing about that original live video, and now your license has been temporarily suspended and you're under formal investigation.
The incident went so viral that even mainstream outlets, including the HIPAA Journal, picked up the story. On top of that, creators in the nursing community began making their own videos condemning her actions. And these weren't just random internet critics, they were her peers, people who actually understood the weight of what she'd done, calling her out for crossing one of the clearest red lines in healthcare.
You gotta be a different kind of dumb to get on here and record yourself on live as a nurse doing a medication pass. HIPAA! The worst part about it is this girl said a patient's name multiple times on here. Talking about something, I'm not breaking HIPAA, you can't see patient information. Girl, we can hear it. Then, baby, you made a medication error on camera. So now I know what med Betty Sue is on. That patient should and could sue the fuck out of you. Do y'all think that they're giving away licenses for fun? The board of nursing will come in your license before you can say I'm sorry. Like, people on the live are trying to warn you, like, girl, you're breaking HIPAA. Girl, log off. Girl, get off. Girl, get off. And she like, it's not that serious. Y'all dragging it. Y'all doing too much. For your 55 viewers, so you about to lose your license for 55 views. Remember, social media is social media. Your license is all you got. You need to protect that shit at all costs. Girl, get off fucking live. You had to record of all things, you passing medication. Something where you should be focused anyways. You at the camera talking, looking, talking to the patient, at the camera, responding to people. Girl.
To deal with whatever comes after that. And whatever comes after that is not for me to tell y'all.
Hello? Girl, what happened? As a nursing student, I want to know what the consequences are for doing stupid shit like that. And then I'm seeing the nurses, oh, you know, she's new, let's give her grace. Is the board of nursing gonna give her a grace? So you do something dumb like that. It seems almost as if once nurses passed NCLEX and they secure a job, like the schooling just like it disappears. The smartness, the critical thinking just disappears. And as a medical assistant and nursing student, I genuinely want to know what the consequences are for doing stupid shit like that. So update us. What you mean? We on episode 3 of your girl, don't get scared now. You already told us the patient's name. We saw the medication that the patient was given. You told us a bunch of shit in a place you wasn't supposed to be recording. But now people are asking you what happened. You don't want to tell it. No, you don't have to. But why not? You told us everything else.
The pressure on Yazz was obvious. Losing her job would have hit her hard financially, and the sheer volume of criticism from the public, especially from other nurses, had to have taken a psychological toll. Eventually, she addressed the situation in an apology video, claiming to take responsibility.
Outside of that, I am the nurse currently going viral right now for passing medications while I'm live, and I do want to take a second to take full accountability for my actions. There's in no way, shape, or form was that appropriate or the right thing to do. I want this to be an example to all the nurses who are currently in the fields, who make nursing content, as well as the nurses that are in school, on just what not to do. What I did, like I said, was not right. I also want to take a second to apologize to everyone that was in the live, everyone who commented on the live, to let me know and to warn me my attitude was not okay and it was not acceptable. I am a brand new nurse and I love being a nurse. I love my job. I love being able to say I'm a nurse. I love everything about the nursing field. And I think I just took it overboard. I got a little bit excited, y'all. I am human. Please forgive me.
But the problem, the apology didn't match the damage. Instead of acknowledging how she'd harmed her patient or even addressing the core privacy violation, she made it about herself, saying that the live stream going viral exposed her and that everyone makes mistakes. Sure, everyone makes mistakes, but in her case, it felt more like an excuse than a lesson learned. The way she framed it made it seem like the real issue wasn't the HIPAA breach, it was just the fact that people had seen it.
I do want you guys to know that I'm well aware, again, of how extreme and severe my actions were. You do things and you don't think that it's going to go viral. You don't think that it's going to be even seen. And in my case, it was. I woke up and I was all over the internet and I had thousands of comments of people holding me accountable for what I've done.
Even worse, instead of focusing on getting her license back or fighting the suspension, Yazz went right back to making TikToks and then launched a GoFundMe. She claimed the fundraiser had been set up by her parents, but either way, it became her next big talking point.
Good morning, guys. I did want to come on here. I'm just waking up for the day, but I did want to take a second to create this video to let you guys know that my family did create me a GoFundMe, which I'm so grateful for. This is going to be a long journey and a very long process for me. If you guys are able to donate, the GoFundMe link is posted in my bio. If not, or if you just simply don't want to donate, I totally understand. I totally get it. My inbox is open. I read every single message that is sent to me. I may not be able to respond to every message, but I want you guys to know that I do see every message, whether it's positive, whether it's just some sort of encouragement, whether it's constructive criticism. I do see every single message. And yeah, I want to thank you guys in advance for any type of support throughout this process. I do know the severity of what's going on. I'm well aware of what's going on right now.
It's not hard to see why some people might feel sympathy for a situation, but here's the problem. Hardship is not a free pass for reckless behavior, and instead of using this time to reflect or rebuild, Yazz kept making terrible choices. The most glaring example, she put her kids' faces directly on the GoFundMe page. This wasn't just poor judgment, it was essentially doxing her own children to the internet. In a world where online privacy is already fragile, putting your kids' identities out there for sympathy clicks is a decision that could haunt them for years. The GoFundMe wasn't the only time Yazz involved her kids. She started bringing them into her TikTok content as well, making them appear in videos that were clearly part of her ongoing narrative. Whether it was to push back against criticism or to paint a softer image of herself, she was now actively putting her kids in the middle of her online drama. Cost of living with no job and no savings is brutal. As bad as what she did was,
hey guys, so this is our night routine with my family. So first, this is my mom getting the boys in the bath like every night while singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, because that's their night song every night. This is my mom getting their face washed and singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and it's so cute. Next, this is them getting dried off, and my mom is lotioning my baby brother up first. He's saying hi and getting him dressed so he can, and this is his PJs, and this is my brother. He thinks he has muscles. Those are marshmallows. And this is my mom getting him lotioned up and stuff, saying goodnight. And she's putting the baby in the bed. Cameron's getting in the bed. Kisses goodnight.
This wasn't innocent family content. These videos were being posted to an audience that had already seen her at the center of a major controversy, meaning her kids' faces and voices were now directly tied to her public mess. After that, things went strangely quiet. For a brief moment, it looked like Yazz understood just how badly she'd messed up. Her tone changed. She was quieter, less defensive, and no longer snapping at viewers the way she used to. It almost seemed like the whole ordeal had humbled her.
Hi everyone, I did want to get on here I just wanted to take a second to tell everyone thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I truly appreciate all of the support. It doesn't even matter at this point what type of support, whether it's you donating to the GoFundMe, whether it's you reaching out, giving me tips, advice, whether it's a simple prayer. Thank you. If anyone on here has went through anything similar to this or has had to face the Board of Nursing, please feel free to reach out, drop in the comments. How long does it take? Is there anything that I need to prepare myself for this besides an attorney? My inbox is always open. Like I said it before, I may not be able to respond to everyone, but I do see every message that comes through my inbox. I may not see all the comments. I may not be able to respond to all the comments, but all of the messages that come to my inbox, I am able to read. And again, I want to thank you guys. It's truly appreciated, and it does not go unnoticed.
But that didn't last. Just a few weeks later, she slipped right back into her old, arrogant habits. In one instance, a commenter mentioned her suspended license, and instead of addressing it seriously, Yazz fired back with smug sarcasm. "And you're under my post putting money in my bank account," as if that one clapback erased all the bad decisions she'd made, as if people would just forget that she's been publicly begging for money through her GoFundMe not long before. Another time, she posted a video with the same cocky energy, claiming that people wanted her downfall, but she was doing well. But the worst part came when she blatantly lied, saying she hadn't lost her license and was still working, despite her own earlier videos where she clearly admitted her license was temporarily suspended and that she lost her job. It was a complete reversal. From playing the victim to gaslighting her own audience, the humbled phase was nothing more than a pause before returning to the same reckless arrogance that had gotten her in trouble in the first place. And if you thought the arrogance was just limited to her words, it didn't take long for actions to start raising eyebrows again. Even after everything that had happened, Yazz was still blatantly doing unprofessional things, like mixing cleaning chemicals that should never be combined. This wasn't some obscure technicality either. It's a basic safety rule anyone in healthcare or a cleaning environment is expected to know.
Put in they new feed, the good life. Let's go on a living spree. Shit, they say the best things in life are free. The good life. It feel like Atlanta. It feel like LA. It feel like mine.
People in the comments immediately called her out. One viewer warned, "Stop mixing several cleaning chemicals. It's not good for your lungs. You also need to log off and lay low until your investigation is done. This isn't a good look." Another went further, breaking it down. Comet contains sodium hypochlorite and other reactive chemicals. Mixing it with pine sol can produce toxic gases and fumes. No wonder why you did what you did while working as a nurse. You ain't all there. Gonna use this as training vid next semester. And that wasn't the only thing people noticed in the video. Yazz was also being criticized for her spending habits, because while she was publicly claiming she had legal fees piling up, overdue bills, and no way to make money without her nursing job, she was posting about going out for Starbucks. One top comment summed it up perfectly. "So you have a GoFundMe, but you were going out to get Starbucks?" These moments only made it harder for people to believe she was taking anything seriously. It felt like she was doing the bare minimum to appear concerned while carrying on like nothing had changed. In the end, every chance Yazz had to step back, take accountability, and rebuild was wasted on deflection, arrogance, and more bad decisions. With the investigation still underway, and the possibility of criminal charges on top of losing her license, her situation could soon spiral far beyond a career-ending scandal into something that follows her for the rest of her life.
If you built your entire online career queerbaiting and imitating a gay man and mocking women, doing skits where you are actively mocking women and imitating gay mannerisms, and then you come online and tell everyone you have a wife?
The internet is the craziest place. You are trying to cancel a man, Nurse John, because he's not gay.
In the age of social media, fame looks a lot different than it used to. It's no longer reserved for movie stars or musicians. Now, anyone with a phone and a Wi-Fi connection can build a following, spark a trend, or become a household name. These creators feel accessible. We watch them grow, share their daily lives, and speak directly to the camera as if we've known them for years. That sense of authenticity is very powerful and rare. But with that connection comes a different kind of pressure. Every post is a performance. Every word is under scrutiny. And the line between public and private starts to disappear. The same audience that celebrates their rise can just as quickly fuel their downfall. One misstep, one viral clip taken out of context, and the backlash is swift and unforgiving. Today we're looking at one of the most followed and talked about figures in the online nursing community. He's built a massive platform, helped many, and faced an overwhelming amount of judgment along the way. His story is a reflection of what it really means to be famous online and the cost that can come with it. 29-year-old John Dela Cruz, better known by his online name Nurse John, is a Filipino-Canadian content creator recognized for his comedic takes on healthcare and nursing life. Born and raised in Bulacan, Philippines, he immigrated to Canada in 2012 with his family, where he began his studies at Dawson College. After 3 years, he transferred to McGill University in Montreal to pursue a degree in nursing. After graduating, he went on to work as a full-time nurse. a role that would later serve as the foundation for his creative work. He decided to pursue nursing after caring for his grandfather, who was suffering from lung cancer and Alzheimer's. In an exclusive interview from the Nursing Beat, this is what he had to say about his motivation to care for people. "My mom had to leave the house and work overseas to provide for me," Nurse John recalls. "With his mom out of the house, his grandparents stepped in. One day we noticed my grandfather was throwing up blood and losing weight. We didn't know at the time that it was lung cancer, stage 4. They said he had 6 months to live." The experience was a turning point for John. He decided to become a nurse. "I couldn't think of any other profession but nursing, where you treat strangers like family." He wanted to help strangers navigate situations similar to his own and help them feel peace during crisis. "I saw my whole family struggling to take care of him because we didn't have a nurse at home showing us how to feed him or what to do if he's having trouble breathing or swallowing. It was traumatizing seeing this, and I felt this regret that I couldn't do more. When I arrived here, I told myself, I want to do something in my life where I can take care of someone like I'm taking care of my grandpa."
I love it. You know, I did this for my grandpa, my lolo. He died of Alzheimer's and lung cancer. But that's okay. I know he's happy because...
However, this wasn't the only reason John wanted to become a nurse. He was inspired by his mother as well, who he looks up to as a role model because of how she cared for him and their family her entire life by working numerous jobs that included her working for factories and even being a healthcare worker.
I was born in the Philippines and I was raised by a single mother. So my mom has been working a full-time job since the day that she found out that she was pregnant. She basically decided that she wanted to give me the best possible life. So she works so hard. She works in like a Nestle, which is like a chocolate factory, Jollibee food chain, so customer service, and then decided that she wants to be a caregiver. So she worked in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and now Canada, and she's still working as a caregiver till now. One of the biggest influence in my life that I wanted to do something where I can be just like her, where I can give back and care.
Graduating during the peak of the pandemic was a challenge for Nurse John. Starting any new job fresh out of school is tough on its own, but entering the workforce as a nurse during one of the most deadly global health crises of the 2020s made it exponentially more difficult. He was expected to preserve lives in the middle of a staffing crisis, surrounded by fear, chaos, and loss. When interviewed about his initial days as a nurse, this is what he had to say. "The pressure of saving people's lives was crushing. I didn't have support. I didn't have a sense of, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through this. I felt like I was getting thrown into all this," Dela Cruz said. "Already working as a new nurse is a lot of stress, but with a new virus, there's this added stress with new regulations, ways of preventing co-infection, and it changes every single day." During that time, TikTok was exploding in popularity. Like many others, John initially joined in with the lighthearted dance videos and casual posts, using the app as a brief escape from the stress of work. But what changed everything was an unintentional upload, a video he recorded while crying from the stress of work. Although the situation was serious, he edited the video with humor, hoping to laugh about it later with his friends. What he didn't realize, though, was that in the chaos of hearing a code blue announcement over the hospital intercom, he had accidentally posted the clip publicly before rushing back. When he returned to his phone, the video had already taken off. Within 48 hours, the video had gone viral, racking up over 1 million views. John was informed by his family and friends, but at first, he didn't think much of it. But as he began reading the comments, something changed. Healthcare workers from around the world shared how deeply they related to his experience, many describing similar emotional breakdowns during shifts and how isolating those moments had felt. Patients and their families also reached out, thanking him for showing a side of nursing that they rarely got to see. The video, unintentionally raw and vulnerable, struck a chord far beyond what John had expected. Seeing the impact of his content gave him a new perspective. It reminded him that humor and honesty could bring comfort to people in dark moments. While it took him 5 months to feel ready to post something like that again, he eventually did, and it marked the beginning of a new chapter in how after going viral, John didn't waste any time riding the wave. He started pumping out skits on TikTok like clockwork. The formula was simple. The raw, absurd, and borderline traumatic realities of being a nurse, served up with humor and deadpan delivery. Most of his content zeroed in on the shared chaos of the profession, moments that nurses know all too well, and that patients would probably rather not remember. In one skit, he parodies the all-too-familiar horror story of patients randomly leaving their beds at night like it's a scene from a hospital-themed found footage film. In another, he captures the slow mental breakdown that is nursing Monday through Sunday, mapping out the existential decay by day of the week.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
But TikTok wasn't the endgame. He eventually made the jump to YouTube, where he launched a podcast, a longer-form space where he invites people to air their grievances with capitalism, nursing, and the emotional burnout factory we call modern employment. In one episode, he asked fans to submit reasons they hated their jobs. To be honest, it did not disappoint.
Have submitted me on my Instagram because the question that I asked is, why do you hate, dislike, don't like your job?
And instead of laughing them off or making it a cringe fest, he met their stories with real empathy, acknowledging how much it sucks to feel stuck in a job that's eating away at your mental health.
It's valid. Not because you have not experienced something doesn't mean that it's not true. It's over dramatic. Do not invalidate someone else's feeling, because a lot of people, mostly in the internet, do that. They invalidate someone else's feeling and tell them, oh my God, you're just being dramatic. That's not even that bad.
Then he took it a step further. He opened the floor to stories from fellow nurses, exposing the straight-up toxic environments they've had to survive in. One submission laid out the kind of internal bullying that happens behind the sterile curtains, an open secret in the nursing world that rarely gets airtime.
I've heard so many horror stories regarding bullying in the workplace from peers and colleagues, and I've experienced and witnessed nurse-to-nurse bullying firsthand. We're all sick and tired from the work that we do, but once we start mistreating the only people who understand what we're going through, then that's where we fall apart as a profession. The COVID pandemic especially.
This wasn't just content, it was damage control for a profession that eats its young. Nurse John wasn't just making skits anymore, he was building a lifeline for nurses who felt like they were drowning. He knows the system sucks because he's lived through it. He tries to make it bearable for the ones just entering the mess. So when another nurse influencer randomly decided to call him out, yeah, people were confused. Because say what you want, he's one of the few actually trying to make the job suck less. At first, he saw TikTok as just another platform filled with people dancing. But over time, he began to realize that it was much more than that. It was a space for self-expression. He started to view it as a place where people could truly be themselves, raw and unfiltered. Embracing this idea, he decided to be authentic and unafraid of looking silly, dancing freely, or dressing in quirky ways for his videos. He understood that his audience craved this realness and appreciated his willingness to step outside conventional boundaries.
A lot of people have been asking me how I started all of this content creation in the internet, and what I always tell them is that you just have to do it and be raw, be yourself, because that's what I provide to all of my audience, to show the real me. I never show anything that's different about me. I just give them who I am as a person from real life to the internet, and that's what people likes, because then they can relate to you. And if you aspire to be as a content creator, just trust yourself and feel the content creation, enjoy it, have fun with it. It shouldn't be a stressful thing to do. All you have to do is to make sure that the people that you're connecting with are relating to you and seeing you as who you are as a person. And that's what mattered the most.
However, his way of expressing himself through his body language, tone, and manner of speaking came across as feminine to many people in the Western world. Yet this wasn't unusual at all in his own culture. For Filipino men, the way they presented themselves was perfectly normal, and in many cases even celebrated. Unfortunately, it was this very cultural difference that made him a target of Nurse Lex, the internet personality known as Lexden on TikTok, who took issue with his unique style of expression. Because of the way Nurse John carries himself, a lot of people assumed he was gay or queer. So it came as a surprise to many, including Lex, when she found out that he is actually married to a woman. On June 13th, 2024, Nurse John posted on his Instagram with the caption, "Let's make dinner for the wife." This was the first time a lot of his following found out he had a wife, even though he never hid it. Once this post was made, Lex responded by posting a lengthy TikTok where she essentially bashed Nurse John, accusing him of imitating gay men and mocking women in his skits. After learning that he's straight, she deemed his behavior unacceptable. Lex clarified that she also has an issue with gay men mocking women, but argued that it was more sinister, in her words, when a straight man acts gay while performing content she believed was disrespectful to women.
This is all I'm going to say because I have not fully processed this news. If you built your entire online career queer baiting and imitating a gay man and mocking women, doing skits where you are actively mocking women and imitating gay mannerisms, and then you come online and tell everyone you have a wife? I want to be clear that I don't support, nor do I think it's funny when gay men mock women or imitate women either, but it's especially sinister when you've been queer baiting and you're straight. What? Anyway, just add that to the list. Add it to the list.
The problem with Lex's take is that Nurse John has never hidden the fact that he has a wife. He's mentioned her multiple times across platforms, including in a Valentine's Day post he shared on Facebook.
Hey Bessie, come with me. We're gonna get my wife her Valentine's gifts, and also I told her that I'm gonna get...
Lex also failed to provide any actual evidence of Nurse John mocking women. While it's true that he has portrayed female characters in his skits, often in a humorous, exaggerated way, there's no clear indication that these portrayals were intended to be disrespectful. Lex didn't point to any specific examples that showed Nurse John being harmful or offensive toward women in his content. While Lex poses herself as someone fighting for social justice and LGBTQ+ rights, her reaction suggests a lack of cultural understanding and sensitivity. By assuming Nurse John's sexuality based solely on his mannerisms and tone, and then using that assumption as the basis for criticism, she undermines the very inclusivity and expression she claims to support. More importantly, she dismisses the cultural nuances that shape how people from different backgrounds present themselves. At the end of the day, Nurse John was simply expressing himself authentically, and there's nothing wrong with that. In another TikTok, Lex doubled down on her criticism by showing a message from an unverified source. The message claimed to have told Nurse John that his content was harmful to queer people, especially queer nurses. Lex used this to support her stance and continued to push the idea that Nurse John's skits were problematic. She asked her viewers to look closely at how women were portrayed in his videos and decide for themselves if those portrayals were positive or negative. Despite making strong claims, she again failed to provide any concrete examples of Nurse John mocking women or intentionally queerbaiting.
Not even just a wife, but it sounds like multiple queer creators have attempted to correct his behavior, and this is how this went down. I got this message from another large nursing page today about an interaction that they had, as well as a different large creator, when they attempted to educate John, a straight man, as to why it is harmful to mock queer people and women in his content. This is the second half of that message. It's Pride Month. It is Pride Month. And I need you guys to listen to gay people when they tell you that something is harmful. And a straight man deliberately portraying himself as queer for content is harmful. A straight man who ignores mutuals of his who are queer, who explain to him why it's harmful, and then doubles down and continues making that content, is doing it on purpose. It is not up to straight people, like those of y'all in my comments, to tell gay people that it's fine. As said in the beginning of this message, it is intentional baiting. He knows it. He has been spoken to about it multiple times. More than anything, I need you guys to pay close attention to the times at which he dresses up as a woman. How is that woman being portrayed? Is that woman being painted in a good light, or is she the butt of the joke? You can say that, oh, it's just a nursing joke, but it's not. It is rooted in misogyny. And to actively portray and act out gay mannerisms when you have been directed, redirected, and asked not to as a straight man is deliberate.
Instead of backing up her accusations with evidence, she shifted the burden of proof onto her audience, expecting them to validate her claims. This approach comes off as impulsive and emotionally charged, especially when considering that both Lex and Nurse John are nurses themselves. Her public attack on a fellow healthcare worker contributes to the harmful stereotype of nurses bullying one another, a pattern that Nurse John has previously spoken out against and sought to break within the profession. What makes Lex's claims even more questionable is the response from her own followers. Many of her commenters began pushing back. One Reddit user wrote, "Here is my issue. Lex is claiming he's queerbaiting based on her perception only. John never said he was gay. Never. He never intentionally implied he was gay. Nor did he imply he was straight. He just made skits. She's the one who's bringing reality into this." Another comment pointed out the hypocrisy in her argument, saying, "Wait, Lex, who says she's queer but is straight, presenting and primarily dates men, is accusing someone of queerbaiting? I'm not saying she's not queer, but isn't her whole platform supposed to be about presenting how you want to present and loving who you want to love? Labels are unnecessary. It's no one's business." She's basically feeding right into the whole narrative of, if you look like a man but have feminine mannerisms, you must be gay and can't be married to a woman. What's next? She's gonna start telling people which bathroom to use too? Lex tried to defend her stance by claiming she had lived and worked in the Philippines. While that may be true, simply working in another country does not mean someone has a full understanding of the local culture, values, or nuances, especially those surrounding gender expression and social dynamics.
And it is wrong.
Just for added relevance, because apparently I need to do this, I lived in Manila. I lived in the Philippines. I worked at a tuberculosis hospital in Tondo, in Barangay 105. Not all Filipino men are feminine, and it is absolutely insane to even claim that. Like, that's crazy. Here is me, right there, TBT to Blonde Lex, working in a direct observation treatment service center in the Philippines for tuberculosis patients. Also me with Ace, my favorite person on the planet, and an orphan.
Filipino culture has its own long history of gender fluidity and acceptance of effeminate expression among men. Not all Filipino men behave this way, but it's not uncommon or viewed negatively within many communities. Lex's claim to cultural understanding feels shallow, especially when used to discredit someone who actually grew up within that culture. Her insistence that her interpretation is the correct one, despite being told otherwise by both Filipino creators and Filipino commenters, shows a troubling lack of humility. Many pointed out that she was dismissing a cultural lens that she's not fully equipped to speak from. Living in a country for a short time and working with locals doesn't grant someone the right to define what is or isn't acceptable in that culture. Her oversimplified take only added fuel to the fire. Even after being informed that her criticisms disregarded important aspects of Filipino culture, Lex initially refused to back down. She posted another TikTok, now deleted, that came across to many viewers as racially insensitive. The original video is no longer available, but another TikTok creator by the name of History in 60 reacted to it in a stitched video.
Clearly. Regardless of their own upbringing or ethnic background, that type of humor.
That because of your internal racial bias. In my admittedly limited perspective, I have noticed that is a comfort character for a lot of people because either they are that person, they've worked with that person, their mom is that person, their aunt is that person. Like, it's not a negative connotation.
I'm not willing to comment on the morality behind it.
You already did.
But all I am saying is that it is not new. And there's actually terms we've assigned for that specific brand of performance and humor. Thank you.
In the clip, Lex implied that Nurse John was playing a negative role within his own community by making jokes that demean his culture to appease white audiences. She referenced a term they use for people who do this, though she never clarified who they were or what that term actually was. Many viewers interpreted the implication as derogatory and offensive. She framed her argument in a way that suggested Nurse John was dealing with internalized racism, despite never having spoken to him or shown any evidence for that claim. Once again, what makes this especially problematic is the fact that Lex, a white woman with a very limited experience in the Philippines, positioned herself as the authority on what's appropriate for a Filipino creator to express. Her framing suggested she believed she had the right to speak on behalf of the Filipino community, even though members of that community were telling her otherwise. The tone of her video and her choice of words gave off the impression that she saw herself as a sort of savior or moral compass for marginalized people, despite targeting one of the few widely recognized Filipino nurses in Western media. On the other hand, Nurse John had become a popular figure, not just for his humor, but also for being a visible Filipino voice in an industry where representation is often lacking. Filipino nurses are a huge part of the Western healthcare system, yet remain underrepresented in mainstream media. Instead of supporting this representation, Lex used her platform and the fact that it's Pride Month as a stage to discredit a fellow creator. Many viewers believe her attacks were fueled by either conscious or unconscious jealousy, especially considering Nurse John's greater reach and success. What started as a critique of content turned into a personal attack, rooted in assumptions about gender, race, and culture. It's one thing to raise a concern about media representation, but it's another to weaponize identity to tear someone down, especially when that person is part of a culture you don't fully understand. Lex's actions ultimately sparked more backlash against her than against Nurse John, and many now view her as someone who, under the guise of advocacy, caused unnecessary harm to a fellow marginalized voice. After the controversy, a lot of Filipinos and nurses came out to defend Nurse John. A creator named Julesy also weighed in, pointing out that what Lex was doing to Nurse John is actually really similar to what white Americans historically did to Filipino men. She explained that there's documented evidence showing how, during colonization, white Americans used to demonize Filipino men for how they expressed themselves, especially when their behavior didn't line up with Western ideas of masculinity. This wasn't random either. It was a tactic used to create a more submissive, controlled Filipino population. Jules even referenced Colonial Pathologies by Warwick Anderson, a book that talks about exactly this kind of cultural policing. The way Lex called out Nurse John for how he acts isn't new. It echoes that same kind of historical shaming, just in a modern online setting.
The crazy thing to me about a white woman getting on this app and accusing Nurse John of queer baiting because he has a wife but comes off like sassy and feminine, or however she wants to describe him, is that there's an actual documented history of white Americans trying to demonize the sexuality and gender of Filipinos as a means to create a submissive audience, a submissive Filipino audience to the American will. Allow me to back this up with some very dense history books. Warwick Anderson and Colonial Pathologies. This is like archaeology of knowledge. Foucault on the head, baby. This is history of medicine. Very dense, all right? But he at length talks about the American military's like preponderous fear of Filipino men, in particular, their sexuality and gender and their ability to move throughout.
Honestly, watching all this unfold, it really feels like Lex is more interested in being right than being helpful. Instead of listening to the community she claims to stand for, she talks over them. She positions herself as some kind of moral authority, but in doing so, she ends up repeating a harmful pattern just under the disguise of activism. However, Julesy wasn't the only one who talked about how what Lex said was wrong. There were other creators as well who spoke in support of Nurse John. Out of them, one response in particular stood out to us. It was from a queer Filipino girl named Althea, who explained why Lex RN completely misunderstood Filipino men and their so-called feminine behavior. She started off by giving some background about why there are so many Filipino nurses in the US. She explained that after the Spanish left the Philippines, the Americans took over. Then after World War II, the US needed more healthcare workers, so they trained Filipinos to become nurses. This created a steady flow of Filipino nurses to the US, since it gave them a better chance at better jobs and opportunities. Even now, about 25% of healthcare workers in the US are Filipino. But most people outside the US don't know this because Filipinos are underrepresented in the media. That's why she said Nurse John is such a big deal in Filipino communities. He represents a group that's had a huge impact on American healthcare, but doesn't get much recognition. Plus, his skits are super relatable, especially for people in nursing, which again has a huge overlap within the Filipino community. Althea pointed out that Lex was looking at Nurse John through a Western lens, without fully understanding the culture he comes from. She explained that a lot of Filipino men naturally express themselves in ways that might seem feminine from an American or Western point of view, but in the Philippines, that kind of behavior isn't weird or out of place. Just because not all Filipino men act like that doesn't mean it's not culturally accepted. Lex taking that and calling it queer baiting completely missed the point. For a lot of people, Althea's video brought much needed clarity. She also reminded Lex and everyone watching that spending a bit of time in the Philippines doesn't make someone an expert on that culture. Lex mentioned that she had lived and worked in the Philippines, but Althea pointed out that being there temporarily isn't the same as growing up in that culture, being shaped by it and understanding its deeper social dynamics. And honestly, we agree. Just because you've been somewhere or even lived there for a while doesn't give you the right to define what is or isn't part of that culture, especially when you're doing it based on your own worldview. At the end of the day, Lex came off as arrogant and self-absorbed. She acted as if she had the authority to speak on behalf of a culture she's not even part of. She talks about racism and biases, yet fails to acknowledge her own biases around gender and sexuality, and how those expectations vary depending on the race or culture someone is from. In trying to call someone out, Lex actually exposed how close-minded she is. She thought she was being progressive, but instead she boxed people into traditional roles and completely ignored cultural differences. Althea made a great point about how straight men expressing themselves in ways that are seen as more feminine in the West doesn't mean they're queer-baiting, it just means they're comfortable being themselves. They don't need to fit into some rigid definition of masculinity or attach a label to how they speak or move. Lex's obsession with assigning meaning to every mannerism says more about her than it does about Nurse John. If anything, she's the one clinging to outdated ideas of what men are supposed to act like.
Hi, my name is Althea. I'm queer, I'm Filipina, and almost all of my immediate family are nurses, so I just wanted to add a little bit of my perspective on the situation. First, I want to say Lex, this creator that I'm stitching, is doing great things, raising awareness for Palestinians. You should go check out her profile, donate to causes, all of that good stuff. But I will say, I think her criticism of Nurse John is a little bit lacking, and let me explain why. First, we need to talk about the history of Filipinos and Filipino nurses specifically in America and why it is such a thing. So America colonized the Philippines after the Spanish colonized the Philippines, and particularly in post-World War II, America had created a program that incentivized Filipinos to become nurses and to fill gaps that were left by Americans in the American healthcare workforce. So again, post-World War II, a lot of Filipino nurses were being encouraged, essentially incentivized to come to America and be nurses. And that's why we see so many Filipino nurses. But at the same time, and again, 25% of Filipino adult workers in America are healthcare workers, frontline healthcare workers. So it's not just a stereotype, you know, it is coming from a certain place of truth in that sense. And again, it's a history of colonialism, it's a history of American involvement, all that stuff. With that being said, even though we have such a significant presence in healthcare, a lot of media fails to recognize that. You know, we have shows like Grey's Anatomy, we have all these doctor nursing shows, medical shows that don't have any Filipinos in them. So we're lacking that representation there. A lot of Filipinos have always wondered, why are we not represented in the media in this way? So I think that's where Nurse John comes in. Nurse John has had such a huge following on social media, partially because I think we don't get that representation anywhere else. And I feel like it is a representation, again, that we are just lacking, that we are embracing when we see, which is why Nurse John has so many Filipino followers, why he has so many nurses following him. So there's that piece. Now let's go to the second piece about gender and sexuality expression. Everyone's saying, oh, you know, Nurse John is queer baiting, da 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 da. I think are missing two things. The first thing that they're missing is the Filipino culture. And I recognize that Lex has spent time in the Philippines. She was on a medical mission there, which has its own ethical and moral implications, but I'm not even going to go there. But just because you spent a couple of months or however long she was there, I don't think that necessarily means you understand all the nuances of Filipino culture, and I'm not pretending that I do either, but I was born in the Philippines, and again, I have so many Filipino nurses and Filipino people in my life, my family. So here's what I'm going to say about Filipino culture and sexuality. There are many Filipino men that are straight but act more effeminate, especially from a Western viewpoint. And that's just the way it is. Again, there's a lot of nuance behind that, but I can't go into that in just a little TikTok video. So there's that piece. And the second piece is there is a lot of hypocrisy within the queer community of accusing straight men of queer baiting when they are just presenting themselves in a feminine way. And it's silly, because why are we all of a sudden gatekeeping how people are allowed to present in their sexuality? That seems to me antithetical to being a supportive, inclusive community. So there's those two pieces there. Again, there's this nuance of Filipino culture and how it intersects with queer culture, and how all of that is in the background of this person, Nurse John, has a huge platform because we Filipinos recognize the truth, the humor, the familiarity, the comfort in the videos that he makes. I think his videos are amazing, funny. I see my mom, I see my dad, I see my stepmom, I see my brother in these videos, because that is the reality of us growing up and, you know, being in this culture that has, that I grew up in, basically. Again, this is not any hate to Lex. or anyone else in the comments of her videos that are explaining their point of view. And I understand there are queer people that have had conversations with John, but I think there is this piece of Filipino culture, Filipino nursing culture, that is missing from the conversation that I just wanted to input. Again, Western people viewing certain Filipino men that are straight might see them as queer baiting, might see them as like they're strange, like why is he acting so feminine? But again, it's very hypocritical in a sense, because again, why are we gatekeeping how people are allowed to present their sexuality, especially from a culture which you are not necessarily fully familiar with? But again, I think Lex is doing great things otherwise. I think that her particular criticism of Nurse John is, to me, a little bit, it's more nuanced. So that's all I have to say.
Another creator who goes by the name History in 60 also called out LexRN, this time for implying that Nurse John was somehow biased against his own race. In her video, she pointed out that Lex was basically trying to tell a whole group of people how they should feel about Nurse John and his content, all because of biases Lex hadn't unpacked in herself. She explained that Lex has no right to speak over Filipinos or try to dictate how they should feel about someone from their own community. Filipino viewers, and really anyone watching Nurse John, are fully capable of forming their own opinions without Lex trying to control the narrative. Not only that, but she also pointed out that Lex was basically implying people only enjoy Nurse John's content because it plays into their own racial biases. That alone says a lot about how Lex sees herself. It makes her sound like she thinks she's morally superior to everyone else, which honestly comes off as low-key narcissistic. Instead of letting people enjoy content or form their own opinions, she assumes she knows better than everyone else, including the communities she claims to defend. There is even a Reddit comment from someone claiming to know her personally, and while we can't verify if it's 100% legit, what they said honestly lines up with how Lex has been acting. The commenter wrote, "I grew up with Alexis. She was basically your classic privileged white girl cheerleader that went on to become a nurse and suddenly is an activist. But when she gets corrected by POC or LGBTQ people, she attacks them, because at the heart of it, it's all self-centered. She used to be like Tumblr famous in high school and would post makeup tutorials and straight up said one time, 'No tranny makeup here,' and I know it was years ago, but she's not as innocent and good-hearted as she claims to be. I had to block her because seeing her content everywhere annoys the out of me, knowing who she really is, while everyone praises her for being such a good person, LMAO. Even if we take that comment with a grain of salt, it honestly reflects what a lot of people are starting to realize. Lex might present herself as this caring, progressive voice online, but the way she speaks over marginalized communities, refuses to listen when she's wrong, and continues to center herself in every conversation shows otherwise. This situation with Nurse John just exposed the kind of person she really is, and it seems like more and more people are catching on. What's ironic is that Lex claims to be fighting for inclusion and representation, yet her mindset is actually more in line with conservative thinking, putting strict rules on how straight or gay men can act. In trying to gatekeep queerness, She ended up pushing a harmful and limiting narrative. The funniest part is that Nurse John didn't even have to respond to her directly. His own audience, along with tons of creators on TikTok, especially those in the nursing and Filipino communities, shut her down for him. Lex never issued a real apology for the situation, nor did she take back anything she said. Instead, all she did was quietly delete her TikTok posts, which honestly just feels like an admission of guilt and defeat. If she really stood by her words, she would have left those videos up and continued the conversation. But she didn't. She wanted to stir the pot and get people to go after John. But when it backfired and the crowd turned on her instead, she couldn't handle it. And while Lex was dealing with the mess she created, scrambling to save face and defend herself from the same audience she tried to weaponize, this was John's response.
Thanks, Bessie, for getting married with me. I'm gonna put that.
So we're here in the conference. The nurses partied last night.
Somebody's CPAP is here. Is that a Filipino nurse? Pump beeps every freaking time.
Okay, Bessie, we're here. The conference is about to start. So being able to put more content out there, showing what we go through so that other people understand.
In October 2022, I started my first mental health leave, including a 9-week stay as an inpatient for trauma treatment. What do you think I did with my time in October 2022? Doing TikTok. And guess who I found?
Me.
It's just a very sincere thank you for what you've been doing, because you gave me the first real smile I've had in a while, and a significant belly laugh.
At the end of the day, Nurse John has been a positive force in the nursing community. His content brings humor, relatability, and a sense of unity to a field that's often stressful and emotionally draining. He represents an underrepresented group in Western healthcare and has become a source of inspiration for so many Filipino nurses and aspiring healthcare workers. He never claimed to speak for anyone but himself, and yet his content resonates with people across cultures because it's authentic. John shows you that you can be compassionate, funny, expressive, and still be a professional, and that's exactly the kind of influence the nursing world needs. Meanwhile, Lex, who claims to be an activist and advocate, actually perpetuates the exact negativity she says she stands against. She judged someone based on stereotypes, projected her own biases onto him, and when called out, refused to listen or learn. Instead of lifting up fellow nurses or creating unity, she tried to tear someone down based on assumptions. That's not activism, it's ego. On the other hand, Nurse John's calm, respectful silence in the face of backlash speaks louder than any TikTok rant. His character, consistency, and the love he gets from his community say everything. With this, we'd like to end the video. That's all we have on Nurse John today. At the end of the day, we don't really think he did anything wrong, and neither does the internet. If you've stayed this far into the video, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give this video a huge thumbs up. Leave a comment down below to let us know what your opinions are on Nurse John and this entire controversy. Do you think Nurse John is queer baiting? Is he really trying to mock women and make fun of them? Or is he just trying to spread smiles across people's faces with his entertaining and funny videos?